Good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to the AM Live version, though I guess this is the June 22nd version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. We're glad you're here, and we're always on Roku also.
Yeah, the Roku app is really cool. All you have to do is just get on your Roku, search EOA Live, find our logo, download it, and there's always something playing. There's a loop that plays of our most recent stuff, and then when we're live, it supersedes that.
Yeah. Well, and the evening stream, which is always, that's the thing that's just live. We've been updating that every day. Blake is. And so then like tonight, this show will be rolling a couple of times. Yeah.
So you can go back and watch it there, but you can also go back and watch it on YouTube or
Facebook
as well.
Yeah. All of the stuff's on demand. So
it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So here in just a bit, we're going to have Nelson Tracey with us here. He is the filmmaker, actually originally from Colorado, and he will be here with us. And they recently finished production of a movie called Breakup Season, and he'll be with us remotely to talk about the making of that movie.
Yeah, it's really cool. He did a residency through Eastern Oregon Film Festival with 4 or 5 other, and they don't call them the way that they explained it during our interview with them when we had them on the show was they're not like infantile filmmakers,
right?
But they're not A-list filmmakers. They're like right in the middle,
right?
And there wasn't any programs for them, so Chris at Eastern Oregon Film Festival, along with H. Nelson Tracey, started this program where they come and for a month and just basically soak in the area.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we had them on during COVID 2021, I believe.
I don't know,
2021.
When everything was remote still, yeah.
Yeah, the crazy times.
Yeah.
It's First Friday.
You have any big plans this weekend?
No, I was thinking I might go because I have to work, so I have to stay close. But I might go over to Hermiston on Saturday because all of our teams are playing. So like all the kids, minors, majors, juniors, and I believe the girls too.
Wow. And
it's the all-star district tournament. So I might go catch some kids baseball.
Yeah.
Because I don't get to do that very often and I love it.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine that's pretty fun. Well, do you want to talk about sports?
Let's do it. It's going to be quick.
All right.
This morning sports report is brought to you by Buffalo Peak Golf Course. Take the Union Highway, go through Union. There's a big blue sign on the right. Take a left, go up the hill. Buffalo Peak Golf Course is a beautiful 18-hole links-style course right at the feet of the, what is it called? Buffalo Peak.
Yeah.
Imagine that. It's a great course. I've played there a lot. I have a lot of fun out there. Dana and his team always do a great job. They've won multiple awards. Buffalo Peak Golf Course, meet me at the peak. For sports today, all I'm really going to talk about, well, obviously we have that all-star tournament this weekend with all the youth teams in Hermiston. I think generally LeGrand does pretty well in these, so I think we're going to do pretty well. I haven't followed, I know some people who have kids on the team, but I haven't really followed it super close. But our big thing coming up is, once again, the East-West Shrine game. And today, I'm going to play a little video of the PT director, the physical therapy director at Shriners Portland, Ben Bertrand. And this is from last year. Hopefully we have new doctors this year and new people to interview, but who knows?
Yeah.
But Ben's actually lived here. He went to he grew up, I think, in Baker, but here he is.
Started with Shriners Children's Portland 3 years ago. 3 years ago this week, actually. So in 2009, I moved to Portland, took over as the director of rehab at Twality Healthcare in Hillsboro, and left Twality Healthcare 3 years ago and landed with Shriners Children's Portland. It was a completely new setting for me. It's been a great challenge. Always worked with adults for the most part in the past, and now focusing on pediatric orthopedics has been a great shift and challenge in my career. The opportunity for Shriners Children's to put this game on in Eastern Oregon is meaningful to me. Just having the connection to the community and living here in this area with the people that are involved with this game for a large chunk of my life. It also brings money into the organization to care for all the children that we do. It's an incredible humbling thing to lead a group of physical therapists and occupational therapists and speech therapists who care so skillfully for the children that come through our doors. Our sports medicine program at Shriners Children's Portland is growing. We're going to have a new fellowship-trained pediatric sports medicine orthopedic surgeon joining our team sometime this fall. And we're excited to expand that program locally in the Portland metro area. The sports medicine program is pretty widespread. It's not just our physicians, it's our physical therapists, it's our motion analysis center. Currently we're involved in a pilot project with a company called Motusi to validate a on-the-field motion analysis software and technology against our gold standard motion analysis lab at our hospital. It's an exciting partnership and we're looking forward to expanding upon it and growing it in the future. My favorite part of working for Shriners Children's Portland is really the relationships with the patients, the parents, and the people that I work with every day.
Ben Bertrand there from Shriners Portland, the PT director. This year, Shrine Game, July 29th, 6 p.m., Baker City. We're gearing up. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming out around the Shrine Game. And my partner in crime during the Shrine Game, I'm the color commentator, and he's the play-by-play. He set up a video to help with ad revenue for Shriners. And basically it's raising money for, a great cause. And here he is.
Hello there. My name is William McLaughlin, and I am the play-by-play announcer for this year's EO Live Sports broadcast of the Oregon East-West Shrine All-Star Football Game. This is my third consecutive year doing this, and it is truly an honor. This game means a lot to me, not just because it showcases great athletes from around the state of Oregon, but also because I was once a patient of Shriners Hospital for Children. Shriners' motto is love to the rescue, and they truly mean that. The work they do for children is truly amazing, and it makes a difference. Trust me, I know from personal experience. If your business is interested in being a game day sponsor for this year's game on July 29th, reach out to EOA TV today. We offer multiple sponsorships, including game title sponsor, game sponsor, quarter sponsor, replay sponsor, and more. Consider being a sponsor today. Not only does it go to a great cause, but it's also a great way to promote your business throughout the region and on the only broadcast of the East-West Shrine All-Star Football Game.
Benny did a great job on that video.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
In a hurry.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole thing we did in a day.
Or
Or in a half a day, yeah.
Everything in that video except for the stuff from Shriners
Yeah.
is shot by Benny too.
Yeah.
All of it. I mean, that week we shoot everything from introductions to practices. We spend time at practice.
Yeah.
Just filming, for B-roll.
Right.
And Benny does a great job with that. I mean, I can't give him enough credit.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Yeah. Don't get a big head, Benny.
He can hear us.
Yeah.
So everybody knows.
All righty. Well, hey, let's look outside. It's beautiful this morning.
Better than yesterday.
Better than yesterday. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so let's see what the weather is supposed to be like. Up to 73 today. Beautiful day.
Very
Doesn't look
nice.
like it's going to rain at all. And then about the same the rest of the week. So
Yeah, it looks like just about the same weather all week.
yeah,
I mean, that's good. All through the weekend.
yeah, that's awesome. That's good.
Yep.
All righty. Well, Nelson Tracey, the Colorado filmmaker who has spent quite a bit of time here in La Grande and recently shot the movie. They just completed the production of the movie Breakup Season. Is going to be with us here right after this. All right, we're back with Nelson. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, great to join you guys. Yeah, doing great.
Thank you. Yeah. And you grew up in Colorado, but you're from LA right now.
Yes. Now my adult life I've been in Los Angeles, but yeah, grew up in Denver, so I have ties to both places.
Okay.
Nice.
Cool.
Which place you like better?
I'm partial to LA. I am. I feel like Denver, you don't get to pick where you're born, but you get to pick where you grow up, so to speak. So yeah, I moved to Southern California to go to school at a place called Chapman, which is down in Orange County. They have a film school. I was one of those people who early on knew I wanted to make movies, so that was a good place to go. And then naturally, from already being in Southern California, I moved up to LA, and I've been there just about ever since, minus my time in La Grande, of course.
That's true. So let's go right into that. We had you on the show, I think 2 years ago, roughly. It was during COVID, and you came here for what would you call that? An internship or what was
film
what
residency?
Was it called?
I think
A residency.
Yeah.
With Eastern Oregon Film Festival out at Hot Lake, and here's a little clip from when you were on the show in the previous.
I grew up in Wyoming, and then went to school in Idaho, and then moved to La Grande from Seattle. And when I came here, there was I knew what a smaller town was like, but still there was a little bit of a whiplash. But the one thing that I've noticed over the last almost 25 years now is the characters. And this is kind of what I think you were saying, Alexander, the characters that you run into here. And, you kind of lose touch. I mean, and everybody does. It doesn't matter where you are. You lose touch with regular people. And I'm sorry, that's probably a weird word, but still, I mean, do you guys, when you've been in restaurants and in different locations, do you like, wow, that person like stepped right out of a movie? And, I mean, have you guys experienced that?
On a daily basis.
We've actually been friending so many people in the area. Like, one of the women that works at the lodge, she also works at a bar. So we went and supported her at the bar that she worked at, and we went and saw the Chekhov plays at the Elgin Opera House. And one of the actresses from that we had met at the brewery where she also worked, and she was like, "Oh, you guys are the filmmakers." And so it's been kind of cool, actually. Like, we've been making friends along the way with locals.
I think even more than the characters, which, yeah, like Natalie said, we've befriended a lot of great people, and we'll continue to do so. I'm having lunch today with Amelia Diaz, the local author here, but I think more specifically, it's the locations that you can't really invent. Like, if I'm sitting at my desk, I could never conjure up like that cool underground mall where there's the Thai food restaurant. Like, I would have never in my wildest imagination invented that location and other stuff like that just adds great texture and great storytelling, because I think we all agree stories come from a place of authenticity and reality, even when you're going fictional. And so, yeah, I think that this time here allows you to do that rather than just a quick, weekend visit. A month here really allows you to sink into that.
So my question to follow that up, was the movie already in your head at that point?
So Breakup Season came to me about prior to ever coming to La Grande. My sister had a friend whose brother brought his girlfriend home for Christmas, and it didn't work out, but she was stuck with the family through Christmas. And that just planted in my head 10 years ago. I was like, that is a wild idea for a movie, and it would make such a good movie. I always imagined I'd shoot it in Colorado because mountains, it's a natural place where you could get stuck for Christmas. Then I was here that month, May of 2021, and I sort of would float that idea to my friends in town and all that. And people would say, "Oh yeah, that happens every year. I-84 shuts down the interstate both directions and people are stuck in the valley all winter long." And so then it felt much more organic and natural, and getting to La Grande being further away from the nearest airport and other places like that, I thought, let's make the movie here. And so then that began formulating some of the more specific stuff, because the idea came prior to coming to La Grande, but I think without being in La Grande, I wouldn't have leaned into so many different specific components that make the movie unique.
That's awesome. That's cool. So it was like basically post movie idea. You get here and you're like, oh, this is it. Like, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most fun parts of filmmaking is what you call the location scouting. There are people who that's their entire job is just go look for great locations, and for me as a writer, it informs so much of my writing decisions. Is once you have a location, I mean that clip is really cool because we did shoot in the Underground Mall. We have a scene that's set in the Underground Mall, and I wouldn't have come up with that on my own, but it worked out really well. And based on spending time at the residency, not just the actual sitting down and writing, which I did plenty of at the residency, but also exploring and being in the different places, informed that what it ended up being scenes in the movie.
That's why I picked that clip. That's what I knew that you had shot down there, and I was like, oh, this corresponds perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Well, very cool. So this, I mean, I'm thankful that you got connected with the Eastern Oregon Film Festival, and I got a ton of questions.
Yeah, please.
But how did you? I mean, let's start with. I mean, making a movie is not simple, and there's a lot of people out there that are like, I want to make a movie, and they've been working at it their entire lives. So I guess the first thing I'm thinking is like, I mean, I have a friend who wants to make a Western, and literally he wrote the script 15 years ago, and he's assembling the people and the cast and so on and so forth. How did you get from point A to point B so quickly? So I mean, you're young. I mean, this is quite a journey that you've taken. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, okay, a Western is actually a good example where I'm one of those people. I knew I wanted to make movies badly from a very young age. It's a compulsion. I don't even feel like I chose it. I feel like I was going to find a way one way or another. And my heart has always been drawn more towards the independent movies just because there's a little bit less of a barrier to entry. Now, I love me a good Western, and I love me high fantasy and all that stuff. But at the level and the scale I'm working at, especially for a first movie, I knew that wasn't going to be plausible. I wrote the screenplay knowing it was going to be difficult and going to be like the most challenging and biggest thing I've ever done, but also still within reach. In other words, it's not a period piece. You don't need to have costumes or old-fashioned cars or old-fashioned furniture and all that. It takes place in present day. It's a small cast. Most of the movie takes place at the house with just the 6 main characters, as opposed to needing a huge crowd or anything like that. Now, we did shoot a couple scenes downtown that required more people, but for the most part, very contained elements. And so I basically would watch movies, especially first movies by directors that I admired, movies like Blood Simple by the Coen brothers, and that are done on a small enough scale where, like, for a first movie, you don't want to try to reinvent cinema on your first go. You want to just make something that works and is within your range. So I think, obviously, that's really broad, but I think, to your friend who has the Western, it's like, I knew I couldn't start with a Western. I knew I needed to start with a contemporary small ensemble drama, because that's something that you can do at the scale I'm working at. Now, there's still a ton of elements involved and still fundraising. I'm still fundraising. There are still so much of that components to do, and that will go on until the end, until the movie's out. It's a marathon for sure, because it's independent. It's not, a studio did not call me up and say, here's $1 million, go make your movie.
Right.
That I would have loved that, but that did not happen. So I had to kind of come up with it in a more grassroots way. But to your original question, that's sort of one of the main things. I did think about it as an indie small scale project from the get.
Well, and I totally understand that, because I mean, as you know, we do video production too, and all of those factors are, if a client comes and says we want a video, I mean, their budget is determines whether we shoot it in the studio or on location, or and all of those things increase cost factors and arrangement and doability and all of that. So the Eastern Oregon Film Festival is a great asset for us to have. Brings in a lot of people from the outside and puts a lot of heads on beds from an economic development standpoint. and that is all really good. But a lot of the films are not necessarily what local people would watch. I mean, they're what film festival people will watch. And so I guess that's so, but you chose a film. I mean, and frankly, some of the film festival films that I've seen in the past, they're just a little odd. I mean, they're not odd. They're not made for mainstream. And so
independent cinema. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of it, right? You're an artist and you make the kind of thing that you want to make. And if the audience comes along with it, yay, it's a win. So, but you seem to have chosen a film though that is it's way more likable. It's more relatable. I mean, right out of the gate. And that was is part of that you know it's the first film and you kind of want to get. I mean, talk about that choice a little bit.
Yeah, that's it's people sometimes will ask me like, what's your genre or what's your lane, so to speak, and especially this early into my career, I don't want to pinpoint myself as someone who only does one type of thing. You see that all the time, where especially with a genre like horror, where someone who does a great horror movie, then they're only getting offered horror stuff,
right?
And so I tend to like drama, and that's what's funny is people hear the premise and they assume. In fact, I had multiple people in town ask me, "Oh, is it a Hallmark movie? Because it's a Christmas movie," and so that's a fair assumption. It is not a Hallmark movie. I don't think Hallmark would take it just because it doesn't fit into their cookie cutter box the way I think they would want it to. So I think let's see what the audience thinks in the brand. I think they will enjoy it. It is. My hope is most of all to be relatable. I think that a movie where there are 6 characters, I find myself a little bit of all 6 of them, and I think everyone will find, whether it's the parents or the older brother or the younger sister, these are all relatable characters. And so I think I can't speak broadly to all the other films at Eastern Oregon Film Festival, and I agree. I've seen movies of all types at the film fest. I've seen some really audience pleasing, stuff that everyone like is hooting and hollering at the end of. I've also seen some stuff where people are like, that was a little outside of my wheelhouse, and that's what a great film festival has, an eclectic array, so that it is taking you places you wouldn't otherwise go. Where we fit in that, I think, is to be determined, and we'll see what the audience thinks. But in general, yes, I would not call this an experimental film by any means. It plays to a regular screenplay. There is a beginning, a middle, and an end. These are screenplay structures that I've studied, and I want to be entertaining and thought-provoking in its own way.
Well, and I think that makes it more relatable. I mean, that makes it. I mean, everybody's excited that you chose LeGrand, that you're doing it here. Local people will enjoy the film just because, oh, I know where that's at, or oh, that's and so on and so forth. But still, if in the meantime you tell a relatable story, which is what I think you're trying to do, then I think that'll be a win. I mean, that's awesome.
Especially here, especially in LeGrand, because the last movie that was shot here, which was the Bell story. What was that movie called? I think it was called Joe Bell.
Yeah.
They didn't give any credit to LeGrand in that movie, so a lot of people don't know that it's. A lot of people don't even because they changed the names of everything, even though it was. It wasn't shot here, but it was a story about here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So true story.
A lot of people know that this movie is like a LeGrand. You know what I mean? It was shot here. It's got roots here.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could easily. There was a lot of, to the budget question, all that, there was a lot of people, even my producers were like, well, what if we shot this, in Portland or somewhere a lot closer to home? But, I knew LeGrand had enough specific components that would be very hard to replicate. And just, yes, it did require bringing more people, spending more money on hotels and these things like that. But the reward is a movie that has a lot more uniqueness. There are a lot of LA movies. There are even a lot of Portland movies. As you said, you can count the number of LeGrand movies on less than one hand. And even Joe Bell, it's worth clarifying, was not actually shot in LeGrand. It's a story set here, but it was shot in Utah because his journey, he goes on foot and starts walking. So they wanted to, show most of it from there. But yes, this is not this is one of the rare movies that just fully leaned into LeGrand and, is showcasing the city as best we can.
Love it. I love it. Now, when we talk about the characters, the cast, tell me about that a little bit. How'd you cast the people for the parts?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have six principal actors, and I knew this was going to be, an ensemble movie, meaning there aren't any small parts in the movie. They all get ample screen time and all that. So we hired a casting director, and the casting director vets, hundreds of people, and it's a mix of trying to find actors of note who are looking for great roles, and also trying to find up and coming unknown actors who will add a lot of value to the movie. And so you're trying to balance. It's like you're building your recipe, right? You kind of need a little bit of mix of everything. So early on, I made a list of some of my the dream actors I wanted to work with, and one of them was our lead actress, Samantha Isler. I knew her from a movie called Captain Fantastic. Big fan of that movie. She's also in a movie called Molly's Game with Aaron Sorkin, and she was just the right age and kind of at the right spot in her career for this movie. She auditioned and she really wowed us all. It was a pretty clear that she was going to be not only great for the role, but perhaps enhance it and make it better than I could possibly imagine. And once we had her lined up, it was like, okay, well, we need to find a male actor who's kind of at her level and then can kind of go toe to toe with her. Because if it's two leads in a romantic movie, and if one of them is significantly better than the other, you're going to be in trouble, and it's going to look really bad. So,
Right.
So then we decided, let's aim a little higher. We had really good luck so far with our cast, and we've gotten a lot of people we really enjoyed. So we ended up sort of making a list of people that were just kind of the next level up of what they're not necessarily like Tom Cruise, but they're actors of note and all that. And at the top of that list was Chandler Riggs. I knew him from The Walking Dead. He was on that show for 8 years. He was on over 100 episodes. But he's also a young guy. He's in his early 20s, and he's just the right age. It was really important to me that these characters were the actual age of their characters. I didn't want to have one of those movies about 24-year-olds where they're played by 35-year-olds. That's not my favorite kind of movie. So, and you see it all the time. But and for Chandler, it was an appealing project. He is someone who is trying to establish himself. He was a teen actor and was a child actor, but now this is a great part for him as an early 20s actor to showcase his range and not just do zombie genre stuff, which is often what he gets offered, as you can imagine, being on that show. So for him, it's a straight drama, and he rarely gets offered something like that. So, it's one of those. I had a lot of affirmation. There's a lot of cynicism in Hollywood, of course, but I had a lot of confirmation that if you have a good script and you show actors stuff that is appealing to them, and also worth noting that for all these actors, they're getting to do stuff they wouldn't normally get to do, and so for both Sammy, Samantha, and Chandler, they're getting to do a part that they have never gotten to do. It's for both of them, it's their first time being the romantic lead in a film, even though they've had great actors, great roles already. It's something new for both of them. And so that, I think, is one of the sort of secrets, dare I say, of casting.
Nice. Very nice. It seems like it kind of just fell into place. Was there a big process to get Chandler, or was it just you put the script in front of him and boom?
I mean, I keep it short for TV, right? It's a long process for sure.
Okay.
And that's, we make it sound seamless, but we put a lot of elbow grease and hours into that conversation, and that's a lot of back and forth. And I met with him on Zoom. I will say it happened really fast because we had our dates set. We had to shoot it in February because it's the winter, right? We couldn't postpone it to March, April. We didn't know we needed snow on the ground for this movie. And I think actually from the actor's perspective, that was appealing. Oftentimes movies are trying to hang their hat on a famous actor and say, we will film it whenever you want. We want you so badly. We will film it any day you're available, and we, to Chandler and to everyone else, we were like, first day of filming is February 6th. Can you make it? Take it or leave it, and it wasn't, it sounds a little, dare I say ballsy or something like that, but it's like, no, we had to shoot based on the weather, that came first, and so for actors, it's like, they've already, lobbed a feature-length movie by the end of the second month of the year. How nice is that from an acting perspective? Oftentimes you have to wait months or, whatever. And right now there's a strike happening. So, no one's getting work at the moment, and so it's like, how nice for them to have a movie already set so early into the calendar year.
Wow. So I guess the thing that occurs to me is like the money side of that. So, I mean, it's one thing to write a script. It's another thing but to start shooting, you can't be fundraising. I mean, you're fundraising, but you got to have money. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so how did that come together for you?
Well, I've been working on that element for a long time prior, and I knew, certain things started to accelerate. I knew that because of the winter time of year, I had to move a lot of things faster. But I think it started with the state of Oregon has a really generous tax rebate program, and that made it, in other words, you can get a lot more bang for your buck shooting a film, in the state of Oregon as opposed to California or other states. That was kind of one of the first aha moments from a producing side I had. And then, it's kind of the old fashioned, I don't think if you're looking for the, the secret recipe, I don't necessarily have it. I just called a lot of people and called a lot of one-time favors and said, hey, I'm making my first movie, can you pitch in here and can you pitch in there? And by the way, I'm still doing that. There's still a lot of fundraising to be done to get us all the way there. And I think that's where I never had the great white knight swoop in and offer me the, 6-figure check. It was a lot of, for lack of a better expression, death by 1,000 paper cuts, and so I think that that's the only way to do it. We did have, a few examples of local support. EOU came in early from the get-go and said, we'd love to support this film. And they've been a huge supporter of this project. Hill Meats, based out of Pendleton, also came in early and said, we believe in you, what you're doing. And, our only stipulation is, can you put one of our daughters in one of the scenes? And we said, no problem, we'll put her in. And that's Ellen. She's in one of the scenes in the movie. So, there are a few examples of local support. And still drumming that up. I've still got a lot of expenses to figure out. But, I think it's a long and convoluted thing, but it can be done if you just basically say, I'm going to figure this out. And like I said, this is what I've been wanting to do my entire life. So I was going to find a way and call enough people that got where I needed to go. Yeah.
Now, did EOU, did they like literally give you some cash for the movie? How did they give you support? Other than
a few ways. Cash. They were the only folks in town who were able to, from a catering perspective, they could handle us on a large scale. We had a crew of 30 people and we needed 3 square meals a day. And so, as you can imagine, for a local restaurant, that's a huge task. But for a university, it's another day in the shop, And so we were able to get some help from them on a catering perspective. They did a lot of press and marketing for us. So it's an ongoing relationship. Justin Montgomery, who's my contact there, we're figuring out other ways that the film can be mutually beneficial for both of us.
Well, and that's awesome. That's an awesome thing for them to do. So talk to me about I'm the one who does the budgets for the productions we do. I can't imagine, how do you even calculate a production for a movie? What was your budget? And then how do you calculate that kind of stuff?
Sure. I think we had a team of 3 producers, Stephen, Rafi, and Liana. And actually, Liana has not even been to La Grande yet. She was our person back at home, essentially. And she's also our primary accountant. So the 3 of them they produced 4 indie features in the year 2022. So they stay busy. And so they know what they're a well-oiled machine, So between the 3 of them and myself, we all they put together an estimate in, I would say, June of last year. So about a year ago, they put together a first estimate of the movie. And to their credit, their estimate was pretty darn accurate, plus or minus a few things. A few things were more expensive than they thought. A few things were less expensive than they thought. But I will say that they were, I saw it and I was like, oh, that seems a little different than I thought it would be. But sure enough, they were spot on. And so I think just trusting, working with people who have done indie films before and figuring out how to do that. And if you do an estimate odds are some things are going to go up or down, but it's a pretty accurate sense of like all the different moving parts, like you said, because yeah, there are dozens of line items that go into a budget for this.
And there was a lot. I mean, one of the days I had met Steven. I was trying to arrange this interview back when you guys were shooting in February.
Yeah, we were slammed in February.
I know you were. Yeah. And while I'm standing there talking to Steven, one of the assistants came up and offered me a cup of coffee. They had the thing like, hey, can I give you a cup of coffee? They're like, no, I'm not a dude. Yeah. I mean, I just happen to be talking to Steven. I'm not important. So, but it was a real deal. I mean, there were a ton of details that you guys had covered that I'm sure at times were like daunting. Were you able to, I mean, now you directed the film, you wrote and directed, right? Is directing something you've done before? Is that something that, I mean, how did you get into that?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is I had not directed a feature film before, but I had directed about 5 or 6 short films. And so I think at a certain point, feature film is like diving into the deep end of the pool, you know, but at a certain point you just have to jump in, you know?
Right.
And so there's not really you go from doing a 10 to 20 minute project to a 90 to 100 minute project. There isn't really a middle ground, maybe a TV episode, but you know, I'm not in that. That's not really the path I'm climbing on. So I've been making movies in some form or another since I was 12 years old. You know, that was when I got my first video camera. I've been writing stuff since before that, you know, and so I feel like, and I should say this too, I've been studying the craft of cinema long before then too. When I arrived at film school, my first semester, we had a syllabus of 16 movies, and I'd already seen half of them because I'd been studying this stuff. You know, I've been prepared. So I attribute it not just to film school and not just to, you know, getting a video camera. It's this whole combination of this journey. And so for me, yes, this was the biggest thing I'd ever done. And I will say it was way harder than I thought it was going to be, but also so much more rewarding and satisfying. So I think it's just, it sounds kind of, I don't know, cliche or what have you, but I just sort of rose to the occasion. I moved to LeGrand on January 2nd, knowing, essentially a month ahead of schedule. And that month of January, I worked every day was a 12-hour day, and I did everything I could, because when you don't have money, you have sweat equity, you know, and that's how you get out of it, you know. And so we would solve problems that way. And Steven and Rafi put in the same number of hours every single day that month, you know, to make it happen. So I think if there's a will, there's a way, you know. A lot of those kind of trite sayings became true for us, and just sort of, we're going to do what it takes to make this happen. And, you know, to those guys' credit, I think my original vision for the project was a smaller scale operation, but they were like, well, if we're going all the way to LeGrand, Oregon, we may as well, you know, go all in and make this a real thing. And like you said, have someone there to get coffee for people and all the other, you know, moving parts and components to make it feel like a proper movie and not just, you know, a guy with a video camera.
Yeah. So here's a little bit of a geeky question.
Yeah.
And that is, when you are the writer and the director. So then as you are writing, you're envisioning the movie in your head, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And so then how did you, I mean, did you do the shot list? Did you know exactly how you wanted it framed before you were ever shooting, or were you making some of those decisions on the fly as what shots you needed and so on and so forth?
That's a really good question. Yeah. So when you first write it, I just try to purely get it on the page and close my eyes and imagine it. But I'm not, because my background is more actually in editing than in shooting. I think about it more like individual shots, not necessarily like composition framing, but, you know, like there are certain scenes in the movie I knew were going to be one shot. You know, for example, there's an early vlog scene where the younger sister is doing a vlog, and I wanted to make sure it kind of feels like we're from her iPhone's perspective and she's running around the house, you know. So that was going to be a one-shot scene. Other scenes, like a conversation between two characters, you know, I knew it would be framed a certain way. But in terms of shot list, one of the key crew members is the director of photography, and that person's job is all things camera, so that is not just choosing the shot setup, but also the lens choice and all the lighting that is associated with that. So our director of photography was a Portland-based DP named Eric Macy, and so he and I collaborated on the shot list and figured out kind of what are the shots we need to tell the story and all that. And then Steven, our producer, was also the assistant director. And on a movie set like this, the assistant director's job is to keep us on schedule. So, you can have, if you want 15 amazing shots, that's all fine and dandy, but the sunlight might only give you time for 4, and
Right.
So pick 4 good ones, in other words, and so that's where his job, that's the beautiful friction of movie making, right? Is like, I'm going to come with all the creative madness and vision. He's going to come and, reel me in and say, okay, this is what we can do with the time we have. And somehow that ends up making the best movies. I think rather than, unlimited time and energy and all that, it's like, we're choosing stuff. We're being really deliberate. And so certain scenes out of necessity became one-shot scenes because we didn't have time for every single scene to have, 5-6 setups, and so they all take time. Every time you switch the camera and all that, you need new lighting and new lenses and new adjustments and all that. And so that's sort of that's the ongoing process. And a lot of it was done in advance, but then you get to location, you watch the actor on the morning of every single shoot day. You spend about 30 to 45 minutes just with the actors blocking, and you watch what they do and you confirm some of the choices you've made. Then the actors go and get their makeup and their costumes ready while the camera team gets all their lights set up and put together. And then about an hour later, you start shooting that scene exactly as you had it. And then inevitably things change once you're in the day. Once the characters are wearing the costumes they're supposed to be wearing and using the props they're supposed to be doing, you start to notice other details. And as a director, my job is to kind of figure out where I need to rein them in and say, don't do that. And then other places where I'm saying, go play and like, try that out. That's a great idea. And that's the beauty is directing is a very vague title. Everything else has a really set, if you're the props person, you're the props person. You focus on those props, that's it. But my job is vague because I'm sort of looking over the entire operation. And, I'm the one who has to close my eyes and watch the movie in my head and then open my eyes and try to execute as close as possible to what that looks like.
Wow.
Awesome.
So now what a process. Now in a lot of major motion pictures, the script writer is not connected. I mean, they write the script, somebody buys the script. I mean, they are disconnected from the thing. Yeah. I mean, can you ever imagine you writing something like that? Or do you think that you're always going to want to be able to direct or have insight into the things that you're writing?
Sure. That's a really great thought question. I wrote something on spec, and spec means like speculation. Like I wrote something, to go somewhere else. I think with Breakup Season, it's a story that I can. Part of the why I made this as my first movie is it's a story I can really relate to. And, this is not based on a true story, but I think anything you write and direct is going to come from a place of truth. And so on this one, I think it really helped to have both. And I wasn't, the script was set when we started filming. And so it's sort of like switching gears in your brain to go from the actual writing of it to the sort of the execution. So I was able to kind of divorce the two jobs once I was there. Because the writing process looks significantly different. But I mean, yes, I have lots of scripts that I would just write just for the writing process. And writing is something that requires a little less, like you don't need unlimited, or put it this way, writing doesn't require all those sort of producing, fundraising, accounting, all those elements.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't require that, but otherwise there are a lot of screenwriters in Hollywood who are at the mercy of other people wanting to make their movies. One of the beauties of directing is you're in the driver's seat. You're the one saying, I'm going to make this movie happen by hook or by crook, And so I think that's what's intensely appealing to me is I knew I wanted to make stuff, when when I'm all done with this life on planet Earth, I wanted to have stuff that's finished and exists, not just white pages printed out on my desk, And so, and all due respect to writing, but yeah, that I think in the short term, I'm more interested in projects that I can direct and execute that way. And for the time being, that means projects that I also write. But if opportunities present themselves to do one or the other, and one of the goals from a professional standpoint of this movie is to showcase my skill set in both departments and say, look, I'm someone who can write movies. This is what I wrote. I'm also someone that can direct movies and work with the actors, work with the crew, and execute a finished product. And so both those jobs, they're separate, but in this case, I did both because I wanted to do both.
Wow. Nice. Let's change the subject a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about you. What's your favorite movie?
Okay. Favorite movie? That's like one of those. It's a moving target. But I'm gonna go with today. I'm gonna go with the essential classic, The Wizard of Oz. I think is such a seminal movie. Like in terms of, everyone knows the moment where Dorothy opens the door and it just gets color blown out. Like that to me is like movie magic at its finest. And then let me give you something newer too. There's a movie called City of God. It's a Brazilian movie from 2003. And it's about a photographer growing up in the slums of Rio, trying to make it as a photographer and get out of the situation he's in. So those are my answers for you. Something for pop, yeah, both.
when you want to shut your mind off and get away from thinking about writing or movies, what are you doing?
I never do that. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
No,
yeah.
I live and circulate it. I do a lot of volunteer work. I'm a member of a group in LA called the Echo Park Trash Club, where we pick up trash every other Sunday. And it's really great community building. I've gotten to know my city a lot more. I've gotten to know some policies around trash and plastic waste and all that. So I do a lot of advocacy work. I enjoy dancing. We shot a nightclub scene in this movie because I'm someone who likes to dance and get down. So I think that's sort of what a normal weekend for me involves both those things: a little bit of dancing, a little bit of volunteering, and probably a movie or two.
Very nice. When's the movie coming out? When's Breakup Season coming out?
Yeah. 2024 is the answer. We're finishing up now. I'm editing it as well. A whole other job title and all that. And then we submit it to some film festivals. We want to premiere it at one of the top film festivals in the country and sort of start with a bang there. And when you're working on a budget, a film festival is a way to generate attention and clout that helps generate appeal beyond. We know that LeGrand is coming out to see this movie. We want to make sure that all the other cities in this country have the same level of enthusiasm. So premiering it at a film fest helps us do that, and then build our release from there. So I'm working actively on that. Again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. February was a month of madness and shooting the thing, and now I'm sort of in a different type of madness of editing it, funding the final elements, and then figuring out our release plan. Short answer is 2024.
2024.
So a little bit of a reflection question. So when you were a kid, were you the star in your own movies?
That's a good question. I was usually behind the camera, and my siblings were often the stars of my movies. It's hard to do both. Even being on camera is not my I don't even have a cameo there was a moment where I was like, oh, I could sneak in and do a cameo, but I was like,
like during the dance, you could have done the dance thing, right?
Yeah, I could have, sure, but I was doing this and pointing you go there, you go there. I was doing too many things to then try to get down at the same time. So in general not, but I have been in a couple of my own things, but usually it's a very, very small role, and usually it's only out of necessity. I do prefer to leave that to the professional.
Yeah, because it is a little bit of a transition. I mean, there's a lot of young filmmakers with that. They are the star in their own movies, and then eventually they start writing outside of themselves, and there's a little bit of a transition there. So I guess I'm back at Kyle's question. So it sounds like this hobby thing is kind of over, and that's the way my life. I mean, I enjoyed photography, and then eventually it became my living. But what do you do? You know, what do you do that like you really enjoy? Put it that way. Where's your resting place outside of this industry?
I mean, you have to, yeah, that's the thing. Is like, if you're going to make movies, you have to love it. You have to want to do it so bad. It has to be something like it's a compulsion. And so, you know, I think what's cool about movies and film to me is it opens doors to a lot of different places and opportunities, you know? So I do a lot of like, I go to film festivals and I watch that experimental weird stuff that you're describing, and I enjoy it, even though I'm never going to make it. It's sort of like, if you're an artist and I do sculpture, I also enjoy seeing what weaving looks like,
Sure.
or you know, oil pastels or something like that. So I guess that's my thing with film as a hobby or anything like that. Is it sounds like, oh, all I do is make movies or whatever, but it has so many different avenues and lanes within it, many of which I'm not going to do myself. You know, I saw Avatar opening weekend in theaters. I am not at that scale yet, but I am someone who loves what that is as it is. And so, you know, I see the entire range of things, and it sounds kind of cliche or whatever, but I also have a lot of really good friends, and a lot of my time just involves hanging out, catching up with my pals, you know, that something really low key like that. You know, I think when I'm not making movies, oftentimes I'm not looking to like start painting birdhouses or another hobby. You know, I'm just looking to like hang out with my pals and enjoy quality time with people.
Yeah. So one more geeky film question,
Yeah.
and that is, so one of the things that you do, one of your bread and butter things is to edit other people's stuff, right? Also other. So have you had that situation where it's like the shot that you really need isn't there? It didn't turn out, or it's out of focus, or it's some technical issue. I mean, you ever get that?
Every
Like,
single
it's like
project.
that tightness in your chest, like, oh crap. Yeah.
Every single project, including breakup season. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I watch it back. That's the first thing you do, is you watch it all down and you're like, oh my God, we don't have it, you know, and you just kind of like swallow that pill and you think it over. And then you put on your creative thinking cap and you say, okay,
yeah.
well, what can we do around it? You know, and I was listening to a podcast with the editor of La La Land, big movie stars, budget, all that stuff. And they had that happen on their opening credit sequence. They had to reconfigure because something didn't work in the production, and that's the editor's job. And that's where movie magic is really incredible. And I feel like editing, yes, my background is in editing. That's where I've made a living. That's been my career up until now, is editing and assistant editing, and working on some much bigger shows and seeing how they do it has allowed me to, you know, be creative in that space. But even when I was 12 years old and I was editing, you know, in Final Cut or iMovie on my home computer, often I had to do that too, because my skills were, you know, you're working around the skills that you have. So editing is a magic place where you can make something happen that, you know, just with the tools you have. And it's like, it's a puzzle, and there are only a finite number of puzzle pieces, and your job is to figure out how they connect. And if they don't fit together perfectly, then re-engineer them so that they do fit together. And that's where I'm at right now. That's what I'm going to be doing as soon as we're off this call. You know, that's certainly a creative element that, yeah, when you don't have unlimited budget or time, you have to, as an editor, you have to work around those things. So yes, that is a part of the equation for sure.
So in your budget, do you pay yourself for editing, or is that part of the sweat equity?
Right now, I'm not paying myself like an hourly or a daily. I covered just enough to basically cover, you know, my home expenses, but even then, that came from other sources, not from the movie's budget. So yeah, if you're feeling generous, you can. We're still looking for donations for the movie. You can go to. We have a new URL, actually, breakupseasonmovie.com, but that'll take you to the Eastern Oregon Film Festival website. Eastern Oregon is our fiscal sponsor, which means donations are tax deductible, and you can contribute to the movie that way. A lot of our budget is from small dollar donations. You know, this is not again, it's not a Hollywood movie; it's an independent movie. But yeah, I figure out ways to cover my own means. I do other freelance work as well. I'm doing some other, editing gigs and these type of things. Now that we're not in the throes of production, I'm able to do a few different things at once. But man, if I'm trying to basically focus as much as I can while still keeping the movie moving along.
Breakupseason.com.
Breakup Season Movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Breakupseasonmovie.com.
Yeah.
.com.
And you can, yep. And then follow us on Instagram too, at Breakup Season Movie. So we'll keep those as, as our handles and with updates. And those will be the first places where we tell people when the movie's coming out and all things like that. And
nice.
When we're coming back to the Grand. So.
I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
I do a sports show here, and I interview hundreds of athletes, college, high school, pro. One of the things I always ask them at the end is like, if it's an EOU student, why should I come? I'm a high school student. Why should I come play at EOU? Well, you're in the movie business. You're a director, editor, writer. I'm a young, say I'm a high schooler. Why should I get into that business?
I think you will know if my dad is a carpenter contractor, and he just grew up knowing he wanted to build stuff. He was building forts with wood in his backyard when he was 7 years old. It's like a compulsion. And, I know people, one of my friends is a weaver. And so she just knew she wanted to do tapestries and all that. And so it's a tough industry. It's not an industry with stability. I have never had, a retirement plan or these other, elements that often come with some sense of stability. So I will say that you're not going to, if you're looking for that, you're looking in the wrong place. But if you're looking for people who just love what they do and who are passionate and after conjuring something out of nothing, because that's what movies are, right? Like we're taking something that does not exist yet, and we're making it, packaging it up and making it into reality. And so, there's a passion and there's an enthusiasm that is priceless. And that is what that's the fuel that fires me up. And so I think to that young person, most of them who want to make movies will know in their heart, like they'll feel it, they'll wake up in the middle of the night with movie ideas. And I was that way. But then if you're not even there, like some of the great crew members on our movie, just are people who love that euphoric energy of, we want to make this thing happen, and the passion and that surrounds that. It's challenging as hell, but it's also so rewarding.
Awesome. I love that answer.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much. We really
both.
appreciate you spending the time with us. Why don't you get us out of here? You'll just stay with us here.
Bring us out real quick.
Yeah. Yep.
So on this day, what is today?
Today is
June 22nd.
Yeah.
Right? June 22nd.
June 22nd.
1870, U.S. Congress created the Department of Justice on this day. On this day, 1934, John Dillinger is informally named America's first public enemy #1. On this day in 1940, the very first Dairy Queen restaurant opened in Joliet, Illinois. On this day in 1941, Operation Barbarossa. Nazi Germany and its allies invade the Soviet Union during World War II, which is the largest military operation in history.
Wow.
1963, and I watched the video this morning. This is absolutely amazing. 1963, on this day, little Stevie Wonder, age 13, releases his first single, Fingertips, and it's the first live non-studio recording to go #1 on Billboard at 13 years old. And it's on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he's up there and he just rips the harmonica. It is an amazing video. 2020, on this day, New York City, once the epicenter of the pandemic in America, begins stage 2 of reopening, allowing outdoor dining and some in-store shopping. And then finally, the #1 movie on this day in 2003, that'd be a question to ask him if he knows. Probably not. The #1 movie on this day in America, what do you think it is?
In which day?
2003.
2003.
2003. June of 2003.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know like X-Men 2 came out in May.
It's actually Hulk.
Oh, it's Hulk. Okay, yeah.
It's Hulk. You're right there. You're knocking on the door. And then my quote for the day: today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. Quote for the day: today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. That's all I got.
All right.
Thank you so much for being on with us today.
Yeah. Really
Yeah, sure.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys. Such
Yeah.
a pleasure. We'll be back. Yeah, we'll be back with more updates for the movie when the time presents itself.
Okay. Well, and if
Awesome.
you're in town again, be sure and stop into the studio. Say
Absolutely.
hi.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All righty. Thank you, Eastern Oregon. We'll see you next week. Oh, I guess that's on me. I gotta
You thought Benny was
I
gonna
gotta
do
hit
that?
the outro. Yeah.